Good afternoon. Welcome to the 44th episode of My First Job, the podcast. My name is Venugopal and I head a company called Ideascape Communications. Today, we are speaking to three young ladies who are embarking on quite different careers. In the previous episodes, you've seen people with experience in various fields talking about what their career journey has been. But we also found that talking to young people about what they want to do in future is as interesting, if not more, than speaking to the veterans. So I'll bring them on board one by one and introduce you. Our first guest is Aditi Gautam. Aditi is into fashion, though she has done her graduation in biotech. But her views on fashion are not just about clothes, which we'll soon discover. Hi,
Hi,
Aditi.
I am so glad to be here.
Well,
Yeah.
welcome to the show. Okay. Next, Srinithi Natarajan, who looked at different options before she decided that she wanted to help people who had mental health issues. And for one who's at this age looking to get into something as deep as psychology,
Hello.
it should be an interesting career choice. Hi, Sriniti.
Hello.
And finally, Tejaswini Durbha. She is an art student, but she's also looking at what she calls archaic methods of printing, which is more along the generation that I belong to in terms of woodcuts and carvings and things like that. So we'll do this either one by one, but could you tell me, Aditi, what your early influences were and what is it that, you know, at times that point of when you stop being a student and then you say, hey, I've got to get to work sometime. So, what are the things that happen?
I think am I audible? Yeah,
Very well.
during the lockdown, I think I was feeling very stuck with biotech and I'm not feeling that passion or I know I used to feel out of place academically in college and all when people used to talk about, we used to have academic discussions and events. So I think that's when I realized that there's obviously going to be more to life than feeling lost and stuck like this. So yeah, that's when I started my small business in the lockdown. I think I've always had like big dreams, and I know they used to call me Miss Curiosity at home when I was a kid. I've always been a very curious kid, eager to learn. So yeah, I think that's when, and I saw people around me like do stuff they like my dad, my aunt, and all. They've never been afraid to take risks. So I guess starting my small business was my risk, and it's like if not now, then when will I ever start? So that's when I went ahead and started it. Yeah.
So, what did you do? What was the first step that you took?
So I actually during the lockdown, a lot of small businesses in thrift stores were thriving on Instagram. So this was a decision that I contemplated for like months, and I was really into tie dye at that point of time. And tie dye was a dyeing art form that was coming back in style. So I decided to like give it a shot because I thought I actually we used to do tie dye at school when we were in fifth grade or something. We had like a tie dye event or something at school. So from then I was like, let's give it a shot, and I did it, and I liked it. So I used to gift tie dye clothes to my family and friends for their birthdays and all. Then I was like, let's build something more out of this. So I spent like some 5 to 6 months contemplating my decision because I had like a lot of self doubt and it was very new for me. And I looked over at other small businesses and the way they function, and I just observed and learned, and I started. So I contacted manufacturers in Tirupur for like stock. I got my clothes, like the t-shirts that I had to dye. I contacted like a dyer, a person who they sell dyes in wholesale. So I contacted them and I got my dyes and I just started. Like, randomly one night I just decided let's just start and I started.
Wonderful. I like the way you took it step by step by looking at
Yeah.
fabric and then say, okay, gift it to people, see what the reaction is. So in a form, you're testing and seeing whether you can do whatever. Great.
Yeah, and
So we'll come back to it.
yeah.
Srinidhi, what about you? What were your early influences?
My early influences, I think, definitely theater and cinema played a huge role. I think I would get very fascinated when I used to watch all of these crime thrillers. My first ever, recollection of a crime thriller was this movie called Vettayadu Velayadu. So there was something
Okay.
that always drew me to, these characters who were eccentric. I would always want to understand what is it that makes them do this. So anything that I used to watch, stories that I used to read, the newspapers. So I think that fascination just sort of turned into wanting to understand people, wanting to understand what is it that could have made this person do this. Like, what is their
Okay.
thought process? So, and I think that's when psychology fell into my lap because it was all about trying to understand human behavior, understand human thoughts, and I think that drew me closer to the subject. And I did have other options because at that time, psychology, I think it's still very new for people to directly accept. But I think maybe when I was in eighth grade, that's when I was like, oh, this sounds like an interesting subject. But I was also exploring options like journalism and law, and but in 11th grade, so I took psychology as a subject. So in school, because I was given a chance to experiment and explore in school itself, and I think 11th standard, I had a moment where I was sitting in class, and I can recollect this. It was afternoon, I think around 2:30. I was sitting by the windowsill, and I just had a fantastic conversation with my teacher. And that moment, I decided I am going to become a psychologist. I am going to be a psychologist.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that conversation that defined some aspect of it.
Yes.
So, Tejaswini, what about you? How did you get interested in printing and
Uh,
visual arts?
so I never really had any definitive, uh, a striking moment or anything like this. That was very interesting to hear. I've just always been interested in drawing and just creating things, music, anything artistic basically. So I was interested in subjects in school also, but I didn't enjoy studying just for the sake of writing an exam. I like to just study, and even like when classes were going on, I would end up drawing in my textbook and drawing onto the characters that are in the textbook and things
Right.
like that. And then even for me during my PU, I took humanities, art, psychology, economics, those subjects. And I did a short-term course in Chitrakala Parishad, where my parents actually encouraged me to do it. They're like, you're interested in art, you enjoy doing this, go join this course, do it after college, because I had time in the evenings. So I did that, and I realized that I always knew that it was something I could do for a degree. Like I had that option, but I didn't know I wanted to do it until I did the short term course. So then over there, I was introduced to printmaking, and that's how I started.
Great. So, one thing that I get from all three of you is that you come from supportive backgrounds in the sense your parents were encouraging. They were not people who told you that do this or else, or,
Hmm.
this kind of. So, do you think that has, it would, but in your case, uh, you got the freedom, but you really worked on it to try and understand where to go with it.
Yeah.
So, any of you can take this. What are the points at which you say that I need to devote more time to this?
Um,
Hmm.
that's it.
Or is it something that comes naturally in the sense that you said, okay, for example, you start doing it and then it involves you, it takes you in, and then you say that, hey, I wouldn't mind doing this for a long time each day. I don't mind if I spend a few years doing this. Aditi, what has your experience been?
Yeah, I don't think there's a particular moment where it hits me that this is where I should be putting more efforts in it. It's a gradual process. Like for me, during the lockdown, I spent a lot of time to researching in fashion, and I this was not a decision I took overnight because I knew it had a lot of risks. especially a lot of financial risks and all that. And if my parents had to be okay with it, I had to convince myself that I could do this first. So I think my small business was my way of doing that, like just to convince myself that this is something I can do. And it was a very gradual process. Even during my the course of running a business, I did like a lot of mistakes. Like right now, if I think about it,
Right.
there were some terrible mistakes that I did, but I think I learned a lot during that period. And every day that I did stuff, I was like, I actually like this, and I want to put more efforts into do something like this. It didn't happen
Okay.
overnight. It's just a very gradual
Right.
process.
Right. But Srinidhi, I can identify with what you said was that I don't think I had a moment, but I knew definitely that writing was something I really enjoyed doing. I could sort of, write and rewrite and do stuff for hours, and I wouldn't know time go by. So playing with words was always something that interested me. So it's great that you had that. So what did the teacher tell you? Do you remember snatches of that conversation?
I think he was telling me about a case of his. I think he was talking about one of the conversations. There was a very interesting client that he had. I am not able to remember what exactly happened or something, but I think one line really stood out. I think he spoke about there's nothing called positive emotions, there's nothing called negative emotions. So, and he said, as a psychologist, when you start talking to people, you start understanding a lot of framework and, all of these techniques. He said, you're sort of giving a part of yourself also there, and that changes you. That really transforms you, right? So, I think just the idea of that really blew my mind.
Okay.
Of course, I really hope my memory was good enough that I could remember the entire conversation. But it was just, it was more than the conversation. I think it was the feel, it was the experience that I felt when I listened to someone. Their experience as a therapist, their experience as a psychologist. What is so? I think for me, it's always been. It's not just what do I do. It is how do I feel when I do something. I think that is very important to me. That has always been important to me, even as a student, as a therapist, and now as a budding entrepreneur, if I may say that. So I think that is
Wonderful.
very important. So that is what excites me. I think I would want to do that continuously, trying to make
Okay.
everything an experience. And yeah.
And take it from there. Okay. Tejaswini, do you think that working with your hands has been important to you? Because a lot of the uh, arts and crafts that you're doing involves using it's not just, there's
Yeah.
digital art, which, you can do with a pen, and a lot of
Hmm.
it has been. But what you have gone into is actually requires effort that you
Hmm.
need to put in. Do
Yeah,
you
it's a
think that
very
played
hands-on thing.
yeah, do you think that played a role?
Yeah, I definitely everything I do requires my hands, like very literally, from holding the brush, holding tools, and molding clay, things like that. But I feel like that's one of my favorite parts of art because I really, like Srinithi said, enjoy the feel of things literally, like the texture of paint, of clay, and whatever materials I'm working with. So, yeah, I have to use my hands a lot. I injured my hand during one of the workshops that we had in college. A mirror fell on my hand, and my I couldn't use my right hand for only like 1 or 2 weeks. But even then, I felt very uh, I didn't know what to do with myself. So then I started drawing with my left hand for a few days.
Okay. Okay. No, it's amazing how what starts off as something which you think is just a sort of fun activity, then begins to take on a different kind of role, because you find that you really you lose yourself, you lose your sense of time. You're not really. There's a beautiful book called Play, which says that that's really where most of human invention begins. It doesn't begin by solving a problem. You start doing something that really interests you, and I think you are the generation who have the both the breadth and the depth to be able to do what what comes to you. So Aditi, you spoke before we started about saying that this there's enough fashion filling landfill, so you started with scrap. So what is your how do you think you're going to be building your business? What are the things that you're thinking about right now?
So, like I said, there's a lot of over consumption, mass production, and people just, I don't know, half the clothes that we consume eventually end up in landfills, right? Unless we
Okay.
donate them properly or whatever. So, I think I would like to start making clothes out of scrap materials or recycled, sustainable materials and upcycle clothes and have a more. I want to contribute to the solution, not to the problem. So, yeah, that I still don't know exactly how I would start my business, but this is just the starting idea that I want to use scrap to make clothes. That's all.
Okay. But then, in terms of fashion, there's always this thing of being um, going with a certain trend that is currently on. How do
Yeah.
you get over that aspect? Because maybe some of the things that you're buying are not current by today's standards.
But
So
I
how do
think,
you reach, or
yeah,
or are
I
you
think
looking at a certain kind of customer?
no, I think trends are very long, not very long lasting, very fleeting, right? Like
Yeah.
denim, if you take denim, it has always been in trend since forever. So I think trends are very fleeting, and I don't, I don't know if it. I think it's stupid to like keep trying to follow with trends because you'll keep purchasing stuff and then you'll keep loading your cupboard, and what are you going to do with the clothes you already have? So I think my target audience would probably be people who focus more on having classic pieces that are long lasting, like vintage pieces. So yeah,
Okay. And I think that very clearly defines how you want to build your brand, because that often becomes the um, point at which you define what you want to do, and
yeah,
then you see what kind of people you want to attract. Srinithi, when you start off, has your youth become a barrier in terms of talking to people?
Yes,
Because
absolutely. Most definitely. I feel, the first thing that I get asked is so anytime. So, my predominantly, I go to school. I train students in public speaking also, apart from being a psychologist. So, one of the first things I always get directed to is, oh, you're a student, go sit there for any event that we go to. If I turn up in color, clothes and all of that. So, we have a good laugh about it. But in a way, the judgments, it definitely initially did affect my self-esteem, because I think when we're starting off, the confidence is something that it takes time to build, right? So for me especially, everything was new. A lot of my friends, who completed my masters along with me, they are now working in organizations. There's always someone else to take care of everything, but starting something of your own, you are the sole person, right? You're the
right,
ringmaster, the lion, everything, right? Even the carpet in the circus, you have to be that. So
right,
it did take a toll, and then I slowly learned. So in the company that I work with for public speaking, I think I have a fantastic team. So they've always, made sure that, okay, no, it's fine. You could go tell the teacher. Like one incident that I remember. So we had two different batches and two trainers had gone. And so I just walked into one class. I was like, okay, I take this class. My colleague can take the other one. So the teacher walks up to my colleague and I, and she was like, I think, sir, you take this class because they're too noisy. She won't be able to handle it. And in that moment, I was like, oh no, but you don't even know me. Right? I thought that
yeah,
was a snap judgment. I may or may not have been able to handle it. I don't know. But in those instances, I wish, things could be seen differently. I don't necessarily see my age as being a barrier. In fact, I think it brings out a lot of fresh perspectives. I would like to believe that, youngsters or even people younger than me, I find people younger than me challenging me in a lot of ways, asking me so many questions, right? Currently, students who are studying psychology, they come up to me and they ask me such fascinating questions. So I think that challenge is something people may fear. I'm not sure, but yeah, hopefully going forward, I do really hope that my work speaks for itself more than my age. But I'm ready
okay,
to experience everything. I think this is also an experience, and it's quite interesting. In a lot of cases, we have a good laugh about it.
wonderful. Okay, so Tejaswini, what's your Do you think it's a career, or it's something that you think art is something that you'd like to focus on as your core, or do you think that it'll be one of the parallel lines in your life?
I think anything that I do will be art based, because like for anything that you need creativity to uh, fuel you. I feel, at least for me.
Right.
So using the skills that I have in art, I feel like I can get into whichever field I think would suit it, and then go ahead depending on that.
Okay,
Because I
now
don't
give me
really
an
see myself
example.
doing anything else.
Give me an example. You're beginning, you're doing, you pick whatever you want, whether it's a woodcut or you're looking at something.
Hmm.
Where do you begin? What is it that you think of when you're creating?
So sometimes I have an idea beforehand, and like I'm just sitting and I see something and I think it's interesting, and I could maybe just see something and say I want to draw it as it is, or I feel like something looks like something else, and then I can make an illustration on that. Or sometimes if I'm feeling stuck, I just take a paper or something and then draw something and just see where it goes. So there's no definite like way of working.
Yeah.
Depends on how I like my inspiration at that point.
Yeah. So what do you do for inspiration? I'm asking these questions because I think anybody
Mm.
who's in creative, I know what
Mm.
I try and do. So what is it that people tend to do? You tend to read? Do you tend to watch a film? Do you tend to do something that is not part of your regular schedule in
Mm.
order to get a new idea?
For me, generally, it's whatever is around me that inspires me. Like I find
Okay.
things around me amusing, or even like my own thoughts, or like things that I imagine amusing. But sometimes like a lot of times I feel stuck and I don't know what to do. I just give it a break that time. I don't force myself. I try to force myself. That doesn't work. I just take a nap, or I just take a break, and then once I'm refreshed,
Great.
I'll see what happens.
Yeah, because this is very, very individualistic.
Hmm.
And Aditi, as far as you're concerned, what are the kind of things that what kind of classic clothes? Yes, but do you think your stint in biotech, no relation whatsoever to what you're doing now, but does it have some? Because the thing is that sometimes you have these very crazy, sort of connections that come. So,
Uh,
do you find that your previous experiences in some way have helped define what you're doing today?
I don't know if it helps right now, but I think it could help in the future. Like if I'm working with textiles and fabrics, I think biotech could play a role because I could like use the techniques that I learned in biotech and like the lab work that I've done. I think it'll definitely play a role when it comes to recycling materials or using scrap and turning it into fabric that I can use. I hope it'll help someday in the future. I don't know if it helps right now. I think right now is more of a personal development from my biotech degree that I have than a professional development.
That's really the strange aspect, right? You tend to look at professions which are very disconnected or seem to have no relation to what you're doing at all, but there are
Yeah.
certain parts of it which you find are actually quite useful. I think, like Deepa just mentioned, that you did tie and dye t-shirts. Wow, that
Yeah.
is
I
quite
didn't make
unusual.
just t-shirts. I did like a lot of other shorts and I did like portly
Okay.
bags and all for like Navratri people wanted it and
Okay.
a lot of
Okay.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that is completely different news, because normal tie and dye that you see is, at least the dupattas and some of the other stuff is what I know. Obviously, I'm
Hmm.
not related to. Okay. So, Srinidhi, what is your way of talking to people? How do you make them comfortable? What are the things that you do? And what is it that has changed in the last, whatever time that you've been practicing, that you have learned you need to do?
So people as in with my clients or just generally like my students or any conversation. Which one?
Okay.
Do you
Conversations
want
of.
conversations with my clients or patients, or is it just generally any conversation with anyone? Which one are you?
Patients. I'm talking to you about your professional, your patients.
My
So,
patients.
who is the youngest patient patient you've spoken to, and who is the
Uh,
oldest?
okay, so the youngest. So I studied in Manipal. So over there, it's a
Right.
teaching hospital. So we had a lot of patients. So I was supervised, but the like I think one of the most memorable therapy sessions that I'd taken was for a 14-year-old.
Okay.
She came, and I don't know, for me it took me a lot to just sort of detach myself from looking at
Okay.
her as a younger sister, right? Because everything that she said, it was so relatable when she spoke about overcoming exam anxiety, talking about fears that she had, how her classmates would perceive her. So it did take me that it took me a lot of training, it took me a lot of conversations with my supervisor to detach myself and not look at her as a younger sister, but as someone who I can only help with facilitating, like the process of facilitating. I'm not there to help her out and make sure she's completely all right. That I can't do that physically, because she did cry even after 2 3 sessions, and that used to leave an impact. So I learned how to handle my own emotions first. A lot of it at one point became very relatable. So it took me also a little while, instead of saying, "Oh yeah, same," "Oh yeah, high five," in my mind that was playing. But I was like, no, I don't think that's fair to do in a professional setting. So I did work a lot on myself. Personal therapy helped me a lot, definitely.
Okay.
I took therapy for myself to become more receptive to what people are saying. Active listening was something that I consciously practiced. That is being in the moment. I think in any kind of conversation that we have, being very, very present to every single word, taking that forward, because mind is a beautiful thing, right? Just wanders here, there, everywhere. So just to come back, be in the moment, be with the person, that is something that I think learned, and I'm actively practicing that with everyone. So I think it's about getting
Okay.
the balance in terms of making them feel comfortable, actively listen, acknowledge what people are saying. That's a beautiful skill that sometimes we tend to forget. We hear them and then we say what we want to say, and then it's done. But
Okay.
acknowledging what they are feeling, what they are saying, what they are not saying, what they are not, actively showing us, I think all of that is also very important.
Okay. Great. So, Tejaswini, in terms of uh, art and the time that you spent,
Hmm.
do you think that a lot of art today is fleeting because people tend to think that with the social media generation, you come up with stuff and it's outdated, it's old in a couple of days? So, are you looking for permanence? Or maybe this is too deep a question to ask, but
No.
but
Uh,
how are you approaching it? I'm asking these because I think you guys belong to a generation where things are changing so rapidly that things which are permanent are, for us, we had things which stayed the same for a very long time. For you, it's switched to the other extreme. So, where are you finding your balance?
I feel like we can categorize the type of art that we do into something you're doing personally for yourself or something you're doing for other people. Like I do take up orders and commissions and things like that. My thing also started like Aditi, like I was gifting people things that I made and things that I painted. And then eventually they wanted more of it, or like their friends wanted something. So then I started
Right.
posting online, and that's how people saw my work. So when it comes to orders and things like that, it completely depends on the person who wants your work. When it comes to my own work, like just drawing that I work that I'm doing for myself, or like even for college, uh, then I don't know how exactly to put it. Like it can be, the process is what matters more than the
Final
final
result.
result itself in that
Okay.
case. So, but I don't think it's very temporary. Like if usually most of the work is pretty personal. Like even the work that I do for others, it's something, it's either of them and their partner, or it's I preserve flowers and things that people usually like throw away otherwise, but has a sentimental value. So I do resin art and I
Okay.
preserve flowers and things like that. So sentimental things don't really, like, it's not something people forget very quickly. It's things that they like to keep with themselves for a very long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think those things are never going to. There are some aspects which are related either to a person or to a certain
Mm.
moment in time, and each one of those things has a, thing by itself. So, Aditi, um, when it comes to fashion, what do you think? Now, how do you change the minds of people who? Do you think that people gravitate to a certain style? They're part of it, or do you think their mind can be changed?
I think most people are changing their perception towards fashion like nowadays. Like people used to focus on trends, and I think people are starting to realize that trends are fleeting, and that they're trying to focus more on slow fashion. But then I think people also have fashion is like a way of expressing yourself, right? Like your clothes are a way of expressing yourself. I think everybody has a different style, so I don't know if I can necessarily change everybody's opinion or view on fashion. I think that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to like
Right.
advocate more for slow and sustainable fashion and push more people towards that direction. That's all.
Okay. So, what do you think you'll be working with more of in the immediate future? What are the things that you've got planned, and what interests you at this point in time?
Currently, I'm doing an internship with a brand right now, the clothing brand, because I think I still need to like learn a lot of stuff before I eventually start my brand. So I'm doing an internship with a clothing brand right now, and I hope like pursue my masters in do a degree in fashion because I do want some professional training before I start. So that's what I'm trying to do right now. Right now, I'm just trying to gain experience, do internships, and yeah, see, I
Okay.
know exactly what I like because fashion is so hard, so much to. It has so much to offer, so I still don't know exactly what career I want to go to. That's what I'm exploring right now. And I think I like in marketing. I think it's a coming very naturally to me. So that's
Yeah.
what I'm exploring right now.
And what I liked is you said you started speaking to people, which is normally not required when you are in a job. The number of people that you're supposed to talk to is very small. But when you're an entrepreneur, when you're trying to find out things for yourself, then you really have to put, all of this out there.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So, Srinidhi, what is it that you like about what you do, and what is it that you dislike about what you
Oh wow. Okay. What is it that I like about what I do? I think I'm very, very passionate about it. So I think like doesn't cut it. I would say love and just constantly keep loving is
do?
that
Okay.
I think I am able to envision this culture where mental health takes precedence in any kind of conversations that we have, in any kind of support that we're able to give one another, support that we're able to give ourselves, that kind of empowerment that we provide to ourselves, right? So I think that vision drives me every day. So be it taking workshops for students, I have a lot of ideas to talk to teachers also on how do you this. I think academic mentoring is coming up a lot. Social emotional learning is something that a lot of schools are now exploring. So I think everyone has the what to do in place, which I'm very, very happy about. But the how to go about it, I think with some sort of professional assistance, they can do wonders with it. So the dream of just a student being able to walk into a school or a professional working, walking into the workplace, right? And if they can feel like, okay, you know what, this is my safe space, I can be myself and just like explore life to the true potential, creating a culture where that fosters mental health. I think I love that vision. And how to go about it is probably, I wouldn't say I dislike it, but it's definitely a very, very slow process. What I do want to change a lot about myself is I think I drive on instant gratification. Probably
Okay.
would like to change that about myself in the way I'm approaching it, right? So I have all
Okay.
of these amazing ideas, and in my mind they're amazing, and I play them in my mind, and it's gotten over, it's completed, and I'm just like, oh, so when is it going to happen in real life, right? So
Yeah.
the execution of it is something that it requires a lot of patience from my side, I feel, and a lot of challenges. Definitely, it's a, it's, I feel like I'm just thrown in blind, and I'm slowly exploring everything. It
Okay.
might take me a little while to start to enjoy that process.
I find
Okay.
that so
So,
relatable,
so
like what you just said.
Yeah.
uh,
I'm so glad that I can, yes, other people are also feeling this.
Yeah.
It's not just me.
wonderful. So, Tejaswini, tell me, uh, we've talked about the job. How do you think you are as a person? How do you come across to people? Are you an introvert? How would you describe yourself?
Actually,
I think I describe myself as an ambivert, a mix of an
Okay.
introvert and an extrovert.
Okay.
Uh, I've been told that I'm friendly. Like I do enjoy interacting with people, but sometimes I like to keep to myself and like I need my own space also. But
Okay.
overall, generally, I do like interacting with people and going out and things like that. Yeah.
Okay. So I've talked to you about your job. Now I'm going to push you guys a little because I think why is it that you guys rely so heavily on messaging rather than speaking to people?
I
uh,
think for me, messaging is just very convenient because you can type it out as soon as you think of something, and then you also have the time to reread what you've written and you can rephrase what you've said and things
Why
like
do you
that, and
need to
then
do
send it.
that?
I think, oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah. No, I don't know because
You,
sometimes I tend to just like as soon as I have a thought, just say it, and then it might not always be the best thing to say.
so you think that it's not right to say things that come out spontaneously?
Not
That you
always.
have to, it's like you're judging yourself in the
Yeah.
context of the company you're in and then
Hmm.
saying, hey, this is what I think, but this
Hmm.
is what I won't say.
Hmm. Another reason is like it's convenient for the other people. Like they can see and respond to it in their own time. Whereas if you call them or have to speak to them in person, they have to stop doing whatever it is that they're doing, and then they have to talk to you at that point only. Like you have to force them to talk to you, maybe in a way.
Isn't that isn't
Yeah.
that the whole point?
It depends on
That
the
you
urgency of
make
the
time for
situation.
people. I've see,
Yeah.
I have no, but I've always felt that the best times I've had are conversations, especially impromptu conversations with people that I've enjoyed being around with. Like this particular time, I
Hmm.
don't think that I'm on a, it's just that none of us know each other.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, we are absolute strangers. You don't know me from Adam. I have, I've spent a lot more years, but I'm just saying things based on what you have told me.
Hmm.
Now, imagine if we wanted to keep this going on a message, you guys would have tuned out what,
Long
40
back.
minutes ago,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's the that's the part about conversations which I think I'm not applying it to everyone, but I think
Hmm.
somehow we've slipped into the easier mode of conversation
Hmm.
rather than something that is even slightly, there's a pushback or there's friction, let me
Hmm.
avoid that. I've seen
Uh,
this thing. The first time I saw it, it was strange when two new people met each other and they said awkward. It's like as if they felt that, hey, this is, but silence is a part of, you look for subjects and I don't do it. I'm not struggling to say, okay, what do I ask Aditi next? What do I ask Srinithi next? What am I going to ask Tejaswini next? No. it's almost as if whatever you guys have said leads to the next point or the next
Yeah.
conversation. And if you allow that to happen, so I'm just wondering, is it because you've been given this whole, you're the smartphone and the internet and the ever connected generation, and you've chosen to be far more withdrawn rather than outgoing?
I think for me, yeah, go ahead.
Listen to you, and then I would love to listen to you.
Yeah,
And then
Yeah.
yeah. I think for me, sometimes I can convey whatever I want to convey better through a message, and then I can have a conversation about it. But I don't. If there's like an argument or some something, if there's a conflict that I want to talk about with my friend or family, whatever, I think it would. I would rather have a face-to-face conversation than a conversation by message. But I sometimes feel like I express whatever I want to say better through a message, and then I talk about it. So that's what I thought. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I do agree with what you said. Even I feel that I do that, like sometimes through words. So I think words of affirmation are also the way that I easily connect to people.
Yeah,
So I feel I do express myself better in words. But unfortunately, what happens is I think so. All my friends, we have this constant thing where I'm the last person to reply to anything. I find it so difficult to keep in touch through social media. For me, I feel right now what conversation that we're having, right? Even if it's face to face, I would like to be fully involved and talk to that person face to face.
yeah,
So even when I walk into certain restaurants or certain cafes, be it the waiter, be it the owner, I sit there sometimes and have like a 10-minute, 15-minute chat with them, which I thoroughly enjoy. But if I had to do the same thing on text with someone else who probably, I grew up with, I find it so difficult. I don't know why. Like, I just, I would rather do a video call any day because,
yeah.
of course, there is distance. A lot of people that we would love to be in touch with live in other places. So the conversations, unfortunately, we do have to resort to technology in this sense, but I don't feel that I'm the right fit for it. Social media engagement or WhatsApp engagement is definitely a world that I struggle with quite a lot.
Okay. Now let's get to another, because all of this is interconnected. Parents. How understanding do you think parents are? Do you wish they were more understanding? Do you wish they understood you better?
I think there's always going to be a gap, like that generation gap.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying the way they don't support me. I'm not saying like that. I think in terms of understanding who we are as people, I I think I had like a very major rebel phase in my teenage years where I refused to like agree with them. I never saw their point of view, but now I'm understanding where they are coming from. So, and I think I don't know. I just don't see how that gap can. I mean, it'll probably take a lot of time for that gap to be bridged, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's part of the process of learning up, because I think parents are also learning to be parents with their firstborn, or at least
Yeah,
they're not going to
yeah,
be able to figure out,
get
okay,
it.
here's the
Yeah,
kid, this is how I bring them up. You make all your mistakes there. So it's not as if you're trained to be a parent and you just come into it and you say the things that you're supposed to, which I think you realize as you grow older, that
yeah.
it
I think
just
they're
gets to
also
be
like
that much.
trying to learn and understand with time, like our
Yeah.
parents. So yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
For me, especially career, hobby wise, and everything, I feel like my parents understood me better than I did myself
Okay.
at first because they knew that I had a knack for and like uh, an interest in art. So when I was in my PU, after PU, I was thinking of what to do. They're like, obviously, you're going to do art. I said, how is
Okay.
it so obvious? I think I should do a BA or something because I don't know, like the future is very uncertain with something like this. They're like, the future is always uncertain. It's better you do what you like doing. So then I did this, and I'm very glad I chose this instead of something else. So I always joke saying that I wanted to do engineering, but my parents forced me to do art instead, when it's usually the other way around.
You're blessed Tejaswini, because
Yeah, I am.
that's the point of conflict in most cases.
Hmm.
This is what I want to do, but this is what your parents want you to become.
Hmm.
Because Srinithi, in your case, I spoke to uh, Soumya in one of the early episodes. You should catch that episode.
Okay.
She is now heading. She does de-addiction at the TTK group hospitals, and she said her father detested the kind of people that she was talking to on a daily basis, saying, "What is it that you find? Why do you find these people fascinating? What is it that?" But I
Yeah.
think she is doing something marvelous because only people with empathy can do this. It's not as
Yeah.
if people decide that, hey, tomorrow I'm going to, because you're listening to other people and you have to put yourself in their place, understand what they're going through, and then possibly come up with solutions. So I think each one of these, there are, and the person you are, I think, Tejasvi, you described yourself as an ambivert. But I'm sure that there are your friends who think you're an extrovert. There are a
Yeah.
few things who think you're an introvert.
Hmm.
And there are some people who say, I just don't get you.
Hmm.
It's going to be a mix
Yeah.
of all that. It's never going to be one thing. We are never one thing to one set
Hmm.
of people, which is where, while this is supposed to be a conversation about jobs and careers, I think they have a whole lot of impact on how you
Hmm.
approach each one of these things. And maybe I wouldn't be talking about these things at all to people who are the same age as I am, because, but with people like you,
It's
I'm
pro.
taking the liberty and saying, okay.
Yeah.
So,
I get it.
okay, another pushback. Are you guys short term thinkers, long term thinkers?
I think I'm a long-term thinker.
I think for me, I'm a long term
Yeah,
thinker.
same. Like,
It just
just
it
because.
doesn't stop. I would love, if given a chance, I would love to have the next 50 years of my life planned. Think
Same.
about everything. Yeah. Can I connect this answer to the previous question about parents? Uh,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
about right, what you would mention about the previous episode, right, with Samya and de-addiction. I think a very
Right.
similar thing happened. So my parents are definitely supportive, but I think the fear also comes because it's more of, oh, would you be able to handle this? Right? What if
Hmm.
it starts to affect you? Certain problems that people might come up with, right? Are you sure that you will be okay at the end of the day? I think this kind of concern is also very normal. And this came up even as a professional when I started taking therapy. And also now that I'm starting my business, um, I think that sense of protectiveness. Oh, are you, will you be okay if this happens, if things don't go? So I think through it all, it's not what I really love about this is that they are voicing out their concerns just to ensure that I think along those lines. So it's sort of like they are preparing me for certain things that might come up, right? And just to understand how I would approach it, how I would handle it. So like more like a simulation, it's like a mock thing. You already know,
Yeah.
you're doing it. And then of course, when you know that you are going to be thrown into that situation, they are always going to have your back. That is like a
Right.
given. And I think communicating that uh, is also something that I learned. Right? It's I think to look at it, they are going to be playing devil's advocate at more instances than one. So over there, my go to is not going to be, oh, how can you not believe me? What is this? If you don't have faith in me, what is this? I'm already feeling sad. Why you make me feel worse? So I think
Okay.
I had to, learn that no, this is not what it is. This is me preparing myself also for such situations. So it's more of how parents communicate certain things and also how we communicate certain things to them. I think both
Okay.
ways it's very important. Do
It
we
works. Yeah.
understand them in this field? And then do they understand us in this field? I think both ways is very important. Long term thinking
Wonderful.
helps.
Okay. Now, attitudes to money.
Hmm.
What is your attitude to money?
Please give.
Yeah.
I would
See,
love to have a lot of money. Yeah.
a lot of time my incentive to work is money. Yeah.
Okay. But um, do you think you would value money over experience, in the sense that I'm willing to slum it out for the first 3 years, so that this will then put me in a position where I can earn much more.
It depends on what I have to deal with, I think.
Yeah, same.
And the situation, like if I need money more at that point in life, then maybe I would do that. Otherwise, I don't know if I'd put myself through hell just for money.
Hmm. For me, I'd like to think of the experience that I'm having. Like, is it
Yeah,
really worth slumming myself out? Is there a different option where I could have it easier and earn more, maybe? I mean,
yeah,
if there's no choice, obviously I will work hard, but if there is a choice, why not take the easier way?
Okay.
For me, it's more, I think, in the so product industry and service industry are very different in this sense, because product, there's something tangible, so people, even though there is a cost to it, they're more okay with purchasing it. But service, like, oh, you're just going to talk, right? And I think it's so sad, as psychologists we're so easily substituted by everything and anything, right? Oh, my bed is my
Yeah.
therapist, my car is my therapist, my dog is my therapist, right? Today I sat down, that's therapy. So I
Art is
think,
my
yeah, art is my therapy. I think the community, we're
yeah.
just so powerful that we just get substituted so easily. Like,
Mm.
food is my therapy. I eat food, everything, life is okay. So in this field, I think it is very important also, uh, to, I think responsibility comes with money.
yeah,
With my field, I personally feel that if I am charging my client, let's say even if it's 500 per hour or something like that, right? Then I'm going to be more responsible in keeping that time. They are going to be more responsible in keeping that time, right? The cancellation of sessions or the work ethic that the client and the therapist both provide, I think that will definitely improve, and that is important. And it's also years of knowledge that we have collected over the years, and a lot of techniques in psychology that we're using, a lot of our references are books. Unfortunately, we pay a lot. And I don't know if you guys know this, so this is very interesting, and I'm recently discovering this. So for internships, when you apply to places, they pay us, right? So if I'm applying somewhere, people pay me. As a psychologist, everywhere that I had applied to for internship, I had to pay.
yeah, yeah. I know this.
So
I
they're like,
know
hey,
this.
Yeah.
yeah, do an internship with us. Also, don't forget to pay us. I'm like, oh, okay. I think but in those days, I definitely did value experience. I didn't want to do it for money. I really did want to get the experience, understand how it is. But now, looking at it from a professional aspect, money, it's more than just income. I think it definitely caters to my confidence, caters to my growth as a professional, my credibility and work ethic as a professional. And I think a lot of that, it defines your, sort of becomes a part of you growing up in this field. The professional world is scary, but there are other things that sort of ground us in this field. So yeah.
Okay. Aditi, what about you? What is your attitude to money? I mean, please give us a lovely, all-encompassing, embracing phrase. But what is your take on money?
I think, like she said, with money, there's a lot of responsibility as well. So, if I had to do an experience, and if I think the experience would be worth it, and if I'm not gonna get a lot of money, if the experience is worth it, if it adds value, I think I would do it. It's not always about the money. I think at least now that I'm starting out, I think I need more experience than I think money should take a backseat for now at least. That's why I'm doing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's always going to be a part of you have to earn, because that in some
yeah,
ways explains the value of whatever you do. Now, I wish I had briefed you both, because Archie has said that can we get uh, Aditi and Tejaswini to show some of their artwork. But the point is, I don't think I prepared you for this.
yeah.
So
Uh,
if you had this thing, then you could have put something aside. But that doesn't matter, because I think now that they know you, they'll figure out, and you can always put things out.
Yeah.
And these
You
days,
can
that's the
follow us
piece
on
of,
our social
like,
media and see
Yeah,
how
we are
it is.
very, very
exactly,
good with that
exactly.
work.
Yeah. And I told my son about, have you
Advertising.
printed cards? He said, who prints cards these days? You
Oh,
just
but
give
I
out your
am
social
actually
media.
wearing some of the stuff that I have made. This
So
is
why don't you hold it up close to camera?
yeah. So these are flowers that I've preserved and made earrings.
Wow,
So
that's
this
Wow.
is
so
from a
beautiful.
trip to Pondicherry with my family. So I found these flowers there. So it's something memorable and it looks pretty. So earrings and the
Wonderful.
necklace also is a flower from my mother's birthday. We'd been to a for strawberry picking, and I found the flower. So it
So what do
looks
you
nice.
do? You take the flower and then encase it in something or glass?
Yeah, it's a material called resin. It's a liquid at first, like you have to mix two components in a perfect ratio to make sure it hardens. And
Okay.
it prevents the flowers from mold, getting mold or fungus, basically. But you have to make sure the
Okay.
flowers are completely dehydrated, and
Okay.
then you can preserve them.
Wow.
So a lot of people give me like their wedding flowers and just things with a lot of sentimental value that they don't want to throw it, and there's a way to keep it preserved.
So
So
you've thrown so that old cliche about keeping books, flowers inside books and then
yeah,
handing over
that's what
them to
I
people.
do. That's what I do all the time. All of my books are filled with flowers. Like every time I open something, a bunch of leaves and things fall out. And I carry a book specifically so I can keep plucking flowers from places.
Okay, fabulous. Now, the issue is that all the comments which have come in, and there are a lot of them. Okay, so I'm just making a request to people, all the people who have commented here, kindly comment on the actual channel itself, because once this goes into replay,
Hmm.
or the live show ends, then people don't get to see all these comments, which I think it's
Hmm.
not just in terms of what you've said but the reaction of people. And I'll just go through some of them because there are a lot of them. I'll just uh yeah, Aditi, all very cool. Girls don't have attitude towards money.
That's supposed to be.
Okay. And this is another thing, that the clarity in your thoughts, because you're no longer seen as kids, because that's a certain thing, that this is getting interesting and enjoying the talk. So obviously we have a very involved audience, which is wonderful. But I think it also needs to get to the point where people who are seeing this at other times, so please do tell your friends and the same.
Yeah.
uh, we're almost close to the end of 1 hour. I didn't know it go past. So,
Yeah.
would you believe it that when we started, we said we're going to go for 1 hour, and you would have said,
Uh,
"What is there to talk about a job for 1 hour?"
Yeah, I'm glad it wasn't just about jobs and careers, and it was a
Yeah,
very interesting talk. Because otherwise, this is like every conversation I have with my relatives wherever I go. They're like, "Oh, what plans for your future?" I'm like, "Oh, I have to talk about that again. I have to pretend to know
yeah,
what
same.
I'm doing."
May I ask you something? Out
Yeah,
of like all your conversations that you've had with the other, panelists or youth or whatever,
yeah,
was
yeah.
there anything different from like this conversation for you?
World apart. It's a world apart, because when I'm talking to people of my age, we have certain tropes. Like Tejaswini just said, what are you going to do? So you go back over your career and then you say, okay, this is what you did.
Hmm.
Whereas we are starting from ground where there's this huge gap. I don't know what you're thinking. You don't know what I'm thinking. You're seeing an old person there in the corner and then saying, what is it that I'm going to be talking to him about? But then I don't think that this mattered beyond after the first 5-10 minutes. It really doesn't matter, because then you're talking about what you do. I'm talking about what I do. And you're telling me about things that you enjoy doing. It creates a career for you, fine. Otherwise you move on to other things, which, and that's the way it's going to be. It's never going to be about just one thing. The difference is that in my generation, my father's generation, you could start in one job and end in the same job. That no longer has to happen.
Yeah.
It just
True.
doesn't happen anymore. So, any closing thoughts? I really enjoyed this one, because I think this is one of those things where I usually step back and let the other person talk. But this time I think I jumped right in, because there was so much to ask you.
Right. I thoroughly enjoyed it. What I really loved about you, sir, was you had three different conversations with each of
Hmm.
us, and you just
At the same
navigated
time.
that so beautifully. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's like the flow is so amazing. I thoroughly enjoyed that. And with Aditi and Tejaswini, very very different from my field. Like
Hmm.
I have no sense of fashion. I wear black everywhere. But even art, I cannot draw a straight line.
Yeah.
But
No,
I
but there
really
is a
enjoy
lot of connection. I think like we can
it.
have a whole conversation
Okay,
about
like I
that
would love to
another
like
time. Yeah,
continue this,
Yeah, same.
in what
yeah,
we
yeah,
have to.
definitely.
I'll keep
Like I
going for
love,
like hours. Yeah.
yeah, like I
Yeah,
want
we
to
can
glimpse
go
Wonderful.
on.
into
Yeah,
Wonderful.
the way you think. I
Wonderful.
love it.
So, if there are two new friendships that happened today,
Yeah.
definitely.
See,
Thank
like,
you for that.
oh,
You also.
two
Yeah,
new
yeah,
see you
friendships that
as well.
happened today.
It
Absolutely.
was really
Now
lovely
it's part
talking to
about me.
you.
yeah.
Great. So, any final thoughts on how people should approach their careers? Do you want to say anything about, to all the others who are listening in, and then they say, okay, this is what you should be doing?
Just do it. Start it,
Just
and
Yeah.
then you'll
Yeah.
figure it out.
Same.
yeah,
Just do it.
It's
That's
like
the big
take
step.
that
Take it.
risk. Like
it's
whatever you do.
easier said than done, but take your time. Don't stress out about it. Things will work out on
Yeah.
their own.
I think that's
Wonderful.
stuff we need to keep telling
That's
ourselves
what,
also.
yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
what I keep,
Yeah.
because just yesterday I was freaking out about what to
Yeah.
do and
Right.
things like that anyway, but it always works out, so no need to stress. And it's okay to take more time and like
Yeah,
things don't have to happen
and that is
instantly.
where I don't understand what is the hurry. That there is this whole thing saying that you need to reach a certain point by a certain age.
Mm.
There's
I
nothing like
think
that.
that's bullshit.
Absolutely
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The journey is what you've got to enjoy. Because if you don't, it's like saying, okay, I become CEO by the time I'm 30. Fine, so what? Next.
Mhm.
Set your own pace. I think that is very
Yeah.
Yeah.
important.
Like
Yeah,
all of us are
that's a
on our
great.
own timelines, right? Like shouldn't
Mm.
compare.
Yeah,
If you love
exactly.
Yeah.
something, even though it's hard, I think you should like go for it. That's all.
Mm.
So my takeaways from this is that I I know that you guys are extremely aware, and the kind of base on from which you're starting from is so much further ahead, which gives me, there's always this thing saying that this current generation is not. I don't think that's true, because all the conversations that I've had with young people are with very balanced. They're very balanced. They're very aware. They're intelligent, and they make connections faster than. So I think the empathy part is something that we need to understand as older people, that you're not handing over to a generation that doesn't know. They know exactly. They're facing far bigger problems than we did. And I think they need a lot more to survive and get ahead in this world. So let me end by wishing you all a wonderful,
Thank you.
eventful, and exciting career ahead.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for accepting. And it's been a
Thank you
real
for
pleasure.
having us.
Thank you for having
Yeah,
us.
thank
Yeah,
you for having
it was
us.
wonderful talking to all of you.
Yeah, same.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was wonderful. And I hope we'll have as many conversations like this in future as well. Thank you to the audience for listening. And please to spread the word to your friends. We are interested in getting to understand what career journeys are all about. Until next time, thank you for listening.